I was on Facebook group the other day, Legal Talk. I will be putting the post over here. And I was reading this guy's comment on a matter that he's going through. Sounds like he's a small business operating in sort of food retail. I think the whole mantra, you can read it here, he's delivering chips to a client. Obviously sold it to him on credit, and then the guy, was supposed to pay later. They kept supplying him. The customer never paid, but then eventually the customer came back and said, no, actually you've undersold us, so we want a refund. And anyway, I was having a look through it and reading the comments, and everyone's like, oh, go to the small claims court. For those of you that don't know, the small claims court is a thing that people can do in South Africa, and they've got equivalents in the UK and the US. And then that basically means that you can go in for any claim under 25,000, correct me if I'm wrong, you can go in and you can get that mitigated quickly without having to hire attorneys, advocates, all of this and that. It's a much quicker process. However, that's for individuals, and it doesn't have anything to do with whether you're running a business or not. So then I started thinking, well, what's the equivalent for a small business? Because quite frankly, some businesses have less money than some people. And that's just a fact of the matter. When I was running my first company before I sold it, it was difficult. Like, legal fees are incredibly expensive. It's like medical aid, right? Like medical bills. It's the same exorbitant fees that they're going to charge to dispute the matter. And don't even get me started on whether it does go to to actually get a court case, and like whether you're going to get anything out of it, and whether you're going to get compensated for your costs. It's a whole different story. Essentially, after reading this guy's post, I was having a think about it, and it's definitely the worst thing about running a business in South Africa for the entire economy. I know it sounds like this is going to be like a grand thing, but Andy, it's not that big of a deal, but it is. Because if you're running a business and you have no trust in the marketplace, you're never going to be able to fully grow your business, or at least grow as quickly as maybe a competing nation. For example, that guy selling on credit is very economically viable for his customer, because his customer can then generate cash flow. It's very economical for the seller because he is getting that at, he's obviously willing to front the capital, but he is still able to get the sale because the customer might not have been able to get that sale. So overall, you're generating sales that may just not have happened. And I know from running businesses as well, it is being able to get credit from a supplier is fantastic. I mean, it's basically like using a credit card. You can get stuff now, pay later. It's fantastic. But ultimately, if you can't rely on that process, it makes it very difficult. Yes or no, there is insurances for those kinds of things and this and that. It's not really applicable to someone that's kind of giving a little bit here. Small businesses aren't looking at that kind of level. It's like a 5,000 Rand advance or a 10,000 Rand advance here. It's not like tens of millions on the books in credit waiting to come back, and that's what makes it tricky. And it's very, very, very frustrating. So this guy on Facebook has pretty much nothing he can do. There is no small claims court for small businesses. If he were to go to court over it, and I think, okay, so he's trying to reclaim about 20,000 from it. Not gonna happen. By the time you send a letter of demand, just a letter of demand is gonna be 2,000 Rand from a attorney, and then they're gonna send it. That means nothing anyway. So like now the other company can send something back, or they can send a rebuttal or something like that, and then you're going to pay for whatever they correspond. But now if you want to go to court, that whole process is just unbelievably expensive. Lawyers generally are charging 10,000 Rand a day to go to court, and a lot of it, unfortunately, is the court's time. They have explained this to me in the past. They get their time is, they've allocated a 30-minute appointment with the judge, but the judge is late, or they've had to move other things in advance, in front of them, behind them, and then they kind of just the whole day is wasted for them anyway because they're sitting there. I'm sure they try to do some emails, but yeah, the point is it's not their fault, but it is, they've got to get paid. But still, they say that's their day in court, plus all the preparation. You've sunk all of that in. And also, kind of from a bit of experience, they always see in the movies, if you take someone to court and like I spend 100,000 in legal fees, you'll be able to claim that back, but you can't. Like, that's not guaranteed. Whether you can say, okay, well, because you've made me have to sue you, I'm going to claim all my legal fees going into it. There is ways to do that, but it's also not guaranteed because it's just subjective and depends on the case, and I'm not a lawyer, so anyway. From personal experience, it's never been the case that you're going to get all of those fees back. That whole process kind of ruins it for businesses everywhere. I wish there was something that the government could put in place, like just make the small claims court available to an SME. And I mean, they're doing so much work for SMEs to try to get them off the ground, because this country is essentially going to run on SMEs. They just have no backing on that. If they were to do something like that, you know, give credit and then the customer's not going to pay. There's nothing. And I'm sure this applies to a whole bunch of other like legal scenarios that happens. But yeah, people do something, they don't get paid, services are ended and it's not delivered, goods are sent and not delivered. And maybe also on the customer side. I mean, but the customer could, if they're not a business and they're buying from the business, they can go to the small claims court. But anyway, I think it's a big problem and I don't have a magical solution for it. Maybe someone high up is watching this, maybe your business is going through something like this. I do have a recommendation: legal insurance. It's like pretty affordable. Doesn't mean they're going to pay out for every single circumstance. In that case, where you're like selling on credit, not very likely. You might have to rather get credit insurance from like an insurance company, like Outsurance, something like that, if they even do it for like a small amount. But all of these things add friction and admin and like unnecessary processes to it. So the only solution is to not do it, which is very stifling to the economy and not something that's great for business at all. That's my rant for the week. Sorry about the stash. I'm trying to grow it and it doesn't look that great at the moment. I thought this would be some interesting thought for you guys, and I'll see you in another video.